get as many obelisks as they could and bring them to the what? The west. That's why you have actually, where's the Cleopatra of England? It's located in London. Now the counterpart, its twin, is how to be located in Central Park. Now what are they doing? Why are you having all this stuff around? You got one in what? You got one in Rome. You see, you know, people walking in Rome, you look at the Vatican, the way it is, they got the obelisk there. You don't need much to understand what's trying to take place there. You don't need much, you understand that, don't you? See, everybody understand that. See, now, we'll get into that and show you what they're trying to tap into. Then we touch on a little bit of the harp stuff, a little bit of other stuff. All this stuff is all tied together. Once you understand the metaphysical principles behind it, see, and what they're trying to tap into, and how and what their intent of using it. So what I told you that is that their intent was to use this stuff misappropriated. In other words, the power was, what this stuff is to do is to what? Empower you, not to what? Not to enslave you. See, and we're going to show forth the dark side of this tries to use these powers for enslavement, where Yahshua Messiah came in to what? To resurrect and to lift man up. Okay, now finish reading that video.
Okay, the practice further demonstrates the reality that this president is thoroughly a luminous pagan. The New World Order is coming. Are you ready? Once you understand what this New World Order really is and how it's being gradually implemented, you will be able to see it progressing in your daily news. Learn how to protect yourself, your loved ones. Stand by for insights so startling you will never look at the news the same way again.
Okay, where do you read that?
You are now on the cutting edge. Now in the first paragraph.
Go ahead.
Today, January 20th, 2005, at 12 noon, President Bush will take the oath of office for a second term as President of the United States.
Now it said 12 noon. It did say 9 o'clock, it said 6 o'clock. It had to be 12 noon. The reason for that, the sun is always awake. And the sun is at the 6. All this stuff ain't just put together, helter skelter. They're trying to orchestrate something such that they can begin to bring about some empowerment. Okay, read.
This inauguration will be the 54th presidential inauguration in our nation's history. Incredibly tight security will be in effect that has, for all purposes, turned Washington, D.C. into a no-flow zone and a city in lockdown. This terribly tight security will continue the endless barrage of wars and rumors of wars we have endured daily since 9/11.
Okay, now this is just the reverse of what Bush thing is just the reverse of what Obama, they got so many people coming in to the inauguration that they are asking people not to come to Washington, D.C. because they don't have the food, their hotels, they don't even have the Wi-Fi. All the phones, they figured everybody, thinking about it, 3 or 4 million people overwhelm the city, overwhelm the Wi-Fi system. In other words, everybody, you couldn't be able to get phones out of there. So they're telling people, listen. So we're beginning to understand what the solemn situation is and what's the hidden meaning behind the scenes. Okay, read.
The world will be looking on in great interest as the most powerful man in the world officially takes office for a second 4-year term. However, in our humble opinion, the most significant story is one of which few people would ever think, simply because they do not know either paganism or the drive to establish Antichrist. The most significant aspect of President Bush's second inauguration is that he will be facing the obelisk during the entire inaugural ceremony. All good pagans face the obelisk as often as possible, so the fact that President Bush will face an obelisk, Washington Monument, during his entire inaugural ceremony further brands him an illuminous pagan. Furthermore, by facing the obelisk, President Bush is signaling occultists the world over that he will continue to pursue the one world government economy and religion, which will allow the Messiah Christ to finally appear. Key to this objective is to bring about the final birth pains, war.
Okay, now, what we have there, so the key word is facing the obelisk. Now I want you to go on the other side, read on page 2. You read the rest of it at home. read that first paragraph there.
Scheduled for President Bush's inauguration.
Right.
President Bush will take the oath of office at noon on January 20th of the west front of the Capitol. To understand the significance of the fact that he will take the oath of office at the west front of the Capitol, please look carefully at the parade route map shown above. The Capitol is on the extreme right of this picture and is labeled U.S. Capitol. A notation, inaugural swearing in is shown within a rectangular box with an arrow pointing to the west front of the Capitol building. Therefore, when President Bush takes his oath of office, and when he addresses the nation, he shall be looking west toward the greatest obelisk in this world, the Washington Monument. Because of the occult nature of our illuminist, Masonic, and Rosicrucian founding fathers, our country is steeped in the occult. The Washington Monument is the world's most famous phallus symbol, also known in the occult as an obelisk.
Right, and exactly, it's 555 feet high. Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. has a ordinance that there can be no structure higher than that obelisk. That's what, there's no structure can be higher than that obelisk. Say, okay, read.
Okay, a notation. Inaugural swearing in is shown within a rectangular box. Therefore, when President Bush takes the office, he's going to be looking west, the greatest office in the world, Washington Monument. Because the occult nature of our illuminist Masonic founding fathers are comfortable steeped in occult. The Washington Monument is the world's most famous phallus symbol, also known as an obelisk. Freemasons and other occults absolutely revere the phallus. The Washington Monument is strategically placed so that leaders of Congress and the White House can face the obelisk daily, just as all devout occultists are required to do.
Okay.
As we report.
Okay. So the white when President Obama went up, president's in his office, the Oval Office, see, and he's looking out of his office, he's looking straight at what? Everything surrounds the office. Now, we're going to hold that for a moment. I'm going to get a book here. It's called, the book is called The Secret Architect of the Capitol. It said The Secret Architect. So them bills are not there. It's an old book here. You can probably get it on the internet. But it's The Secret Architect of our nation capital. The Masons and the Building of Washington, D.C. by David Obelisk. Now, what he says here on page 117, since we got this many things to talk about, many of the stories behind Washington, D.C. When he goes here, and what he says here on page 32 here, on this paragraph here, I'm going to have Peter read this here. And he talks about roughly about 1880. There was a great movement amongst most of the occult, very powerful people, to bring most of those obelisks. There was a great movement to move them out of Africa. I mean, to take down an obelisk. I mean, we ain't talking about picking up a chair. That thing has to be cut down and moved by ship, by sections, and reassembled in a place where they have dedicated. And like I said, in most places, in most of your major power centers. See, they got one, I told you, New York. They got one in D.C. That's the tallest one. They got one in London. They got one in Paris. The Eiffel Tower, you can see that. They got one in Berlin. And they got one in Rome. And most of those, besides D.C. and Paris has still got a bunch of them. My point is, most of those stone idols, they were taken out of Africa, out of Egypt, and brought to those places. They've been set up there for a reason. I used to ask a lot of black people about it. I was like, why do you think they did that? Oh, they did it for this. I didn't ask my question. Why did they move those things there? See, and for what specific reason? And people, they didn't figure out, no. It was for one reason, and that was to demonstrate that they had what? Power. See, and if you don't believe they have that's what one of the reasons of erected penis is power. But and what is the erected penis? It has the power of what? Procreation. It has the power to create. And see, that's one of the greatest powers you can have is to create. And see, and that's one of the reasons why I want to do that. But I say this: one of the greatest countries in the world as far as inventions have been America. Electricity, flight, you name it, it's all come from being the power